start with this. Well, on the undercard of Zurdo Ramirez versus Yunieski Gonzalez, reigning WBC flyweight champion Marlon Esparza is going to be taking on former WBA minimum weight champion Annabelle Ortiz. Not a bad fight, though not the fight I expected. I expected Marlon Esparza's next fight, or very next fight, to be a unification match with one of the other champions at this weight, of which there were four. There is Japan's own Naoko Fujioka holding the WBA, Marlon Esparza holding the WBC, Leonela Paula Judica holding the IBF. Leonela, who was last in action not but a week or so ago in defense of that IBF title. It was her first fight in a long time, and she successfully defended the IBF title, the blue belt, still hanging on to it. And, of course, Leonela's Argentinian countrywoman, unbeaten Deborah Anaí Lopez, WBO champion. I expected Marlon to be fighting one of these fighters, as opposed to a former champion at a lower weight who's coming right off a loss to Marlon's rival, Santizo Estrada. That was earlier this year in March. This will be Annabelle Ortiz's second fight in the year of 2021. She's coming off a loss. She's moving up in weight. She might be more experienced than Marlon Esparza. Only about 2 or 3 years older than Marlon, but this is rather favorable for the reigning champion, as it will be her title on the line. You know, I half expected to see Marlon Esparza in action against Japan's own Naoko Fujioka. Naoko Fujioka, who was last in action on a Golden Boy Promotions card in defense of her title against Sulem Urbina. And Naoko managed to hang on to that WBA title. I half expected to see Marlon against her. You think Naoko might have scared her off? Perhaps. I mean, Marlon Esparza is a good, polished boxer, comes from a great amateur background, but she really ain't the biggest puncher. Some would argue that she doesn't have the best gas tank. I'm just saying, getting that title off of Naoko might be harder than it looks. So she's going to be fighting Annabelle Ortiz, who I reiterate, is a lot more experienced as far as professional experience goes. She's a lot more experienced than Marlon Esparza, though these are less than favorable circumstances for her. Marlon not being a very big puncher, I don't see this fight ending in a knockout. Marlon on points is the logical choice. That would be the logical prediction, the logical pick for this fight set to go down on the undercard of Ramirez versus Gonzalez later on this month on the 18th. Also fighting on that card will be Marlon's professional rival, two-division unbeaten champion, Santizo Estrada. She's going to be defending her WBA minimum weight title against Santizo. It's a minimum weight contest. Santizo Estrada is one of 4 active reigning world champions in the minimum weight division. She's got the WBA title. Germany's own Tina Ruprecht has the WBC title, the green belt. Yo Costavalle of Costa Rica, she's got the blue belt. She's got the IBF title. Vietnam's own newly crowned WBO champion, Thi Nguyen. She very recently beat Japan's own Tsuko Tada to become this division's WBO champion. Santizo's going to be in action on the 18th against Maria Santizo of Guatemala, unbeaten fighter that sports a professional record of 9 wins, no losses with. She's got 5 knockouts. 5 knockouts over pedestrian-level competition. Better still, that does mean that at some level, Maria Santizo, she can punch. And given what's been going on in the world of boxing, recent events, Teofimo Lopez's upset loss to George Kambosos, a champion like a Santizo Estrada, she can't afford to look past anybody, because that's what he did, and look where it got him. I spoke with Santizo over a week ago.
We weren't able to face each other, so that's why I'm defending my WBA world title. But we already have the fight set for my first fight of 2022 will be with Yokosavayev for a unification fight at 105. So that's already set. So I'm happy about that. So this fight in December 18th, I'm just going to go in there, stay busy, defend my world title against a fighter who's 9-0 with 5 knockouts.
And that would be Maria Santizo, who Santizo Estrada is going to be facing on the undercard of Ramirez versus Gonzalez. She's got to be careful. She's got to treat this fight like any other high-level fight. The same kind of preparation that went into the Tenkai Tsunami fight, that's the same kind of preparation that's got to go into this fight, because in this business, you can't afford to look past anybody. On paper, this might be a prelude to something bigger, a unification match with Costa Rica's own Yo Costavalle next year. But you don't make it there unless you make it past Maria first. And that's what Santizo's got to do on the 18th. And just in keeping with the theme of potential banana skins, missteps, and miscalculations, the Korean Cassell, Steve Kim,
He's contributed some very revealing insights.
an article that was recently published by way of Snack Nutrition ahead of this weekend's upcoming lightweight contest and in reference to last week's contest. Portion of the article reads, so what is the future of Lopez with Top Rank, with whom he signed an amended promotional contract with after the Triller purse bid saga earlier this year? The new deal came with increased financial terms, but only if he beat Cambosos and retained his titles. We all know what happened. Now things get re-amended.
It's in there. It's worked in. Of the decreased figures that now exist. But we're not going to abandon him. Maybe it will shut him up, and he'll do what a fighter should do. Train properly. Do a training camp instead of the nonsense he did for this fight. And we'll see it. But he had a real comeuppance,
Said Hall of Fame promoter Bob Arum. Arum had not watched the fight as of Monday.
The major lesson is, think about your opponent and the fight that's coming up. And don't think about the fights down the road and get distracted.
Turns out that Lopez and his team were trying to hatch a plan to have the WBC make Haney their mandatory to, get this, force another purse bid.
They never learned their lesson.
Lamented Arum.
Revealing insights indeed.
Got mixed feelings about this revelation. I do. I got mixed feelings. I'm ambivalent because I can actually forgive Team Lopez backdooring Uncle Bob Arum, in order to get a Haney fight over the line. I can forgive them for doing that because that was the only way that fight was going to get over the line anyway. I told you, Bob Arum wasn't going to foot the bill to pay Devin Haney to come over to their side of things. It would have been a proposition that was more expensive than he would have liked. So the only way to get that fight done would have been to backdoor him. Use Matchroom and the WBC to see about getting a fight ordered so that that fight goes to a purse bid so that Matchroom could then bid on the fight and you can do the fight on DAZN.
I can forgive Team Lopez for doing that.
It seems that Team Lopez wanted to have an extended stay on the DAZN platform, and behind the scenes, wheels were in motion, gears, in order for that to happen. That being said, I can actually forgive Team Lopez for trying to get a Devin Haney fight over the line, though if all of this checks out, that means a lot of other things too. That means that Teofimo wasn't about to leave the lightweight division, that's one, and all this talk of a Josh Taylor fight, moving up in weight to take him on, that was all bullshit. You gotta remember now, their plan was to get some kind of mandatory situation situated, and the only place that could happen is at 135 pounds, not at 140. Devin Haney ain't got no trinket titles, no titles at all at 140 pounds. So if you're moving to have that guy made into your mandatory challenger, the only place that happens is in the lightweight division.
Sounds a lot like they were planning on staying there.
Staying there for at least one more fight, knowing that Teofimo had been struggling for some time to make 135 pounds, knowing that that kid was busting at the seams.
Seems that Teofimo Sr. learned his lesson.
As he identifies leaving Teofimo Lopez in the lightweight division as his mistake. That's the mistake that he made.
That and he's blaming Eddie Hearn for the loss.
So I don't know why. Why would Eddie Hearn want to sabotage Teofimo Lopez? What does he gain from that? For what reason would he conspire against that fighter? George Cambosos, he ain't signed to Matchroom. He's not signed to DAZN.
Not yet he isn't.
Eddie Hearn has caught wind that Lopez Sr. is placing the blame for Saturday's decision loss to George. He's placing that blame at the feet of Eddie Hearn. And to that, Eddie says he messaged me saying he can't believe what I did. If Teofimo Sr. is saying that stuff, how do you expect your son to learn and reflect on what happened? You got beat. It's no disgrace. Take it on the chin and come again.
He got beat fair and square.
It was no robbery. And if Teofimo Lopez Sr. don't snap out of it, that just spells more trouble for his young son. His young son, who is now on the rebound after all these plans they had, they all backfired. See that Team Lopez had some interest in staying in the lightweight division, taking on Devin Haney, What that also means is when they were running around saying Josh Taylor's name, they had no intentions of fighting him, at least not in the immediate future. So if you're Josh Taylor and you come across this information, it's confirmation of what you already knew. This Lopez kid, he's out of his mind. He can't be serious.
Why the hell would I be afraid of him?
Team Lopez has been running around telling every man, woman, and his dog that Josh Taylor is afraid of Teofimo Lopez, that he's punking out. You have to ask, in light of all of this, what's he punking out of? You guys never entered into negotiations. You were backdooring Bob Arum to fight Devin Haney.
If you wanted Josh, you wouldn't have been doing all of that.
You would have saw about getting this Cambosos fight out of the way so you can then use your franchise status to move up in weight and impose yourself on Josh as his WBC mandatory challenger, because those are the entitlements that a franchise champion has, and that's what Teofimo Lopez is after all. He's not the WBC world champion, or he wasn't. He was the WBC franchise champion.
If he really wanted Josh, he could have got him.
If he really wanted Josh Taylor, that's what he would have been working towards. Not a Devin Haney fight. Team Lopez, they had a lot of plans that aren't going to come into fruition now, not in the immediate future. He's on the rebound. He's likely going to come back at 140 pounds, and who knows who he's going to fight. Barboza, Zapata.
I think they're going to put him in a sink-or-swim situation.
Because he was already on the right track, and he and his father and his manager, they derailed themselves.
Making a mountain out of a molehill over a Cambosos purse of all things.
It's their fault, nobody else's. There's a lot of instability to go around. A lot of instability for Teofimo Lopez moving forward, who conceivably will be going to 140 pounds, though I don't expect that Josh Taylor will be there to greet him in what would be Teofimo's maiden voyage to the division. And what's Josh going to do beyond the Jack Catterall fight? Assuming that he wins that fight, does he stay at 140 pounds, defend the undisputed crown one or two more times?
Does he move up to welterweight?
If he does, Top Rank ain't got no world titles for him to fight for. Terrence Crawford's not on that side of the street anymore. It sounds a lot like Terrence Crawford is considering crossing over to the PBC side of things. He was very recently on the Porter Way podcast here on YouTube, and he mentioned several PBC fighters by name that he has in his crosshairs.
I didn't get the sense that Terrence was going to fight Josh Taylor next.
Leading up to the Sean Porter fight, I didn't get the sense that Terrence was looking to fight with Josh Taylor thereafter, leading up to the Porter fight, and after the fight.
It still doesn't look like he's fighting that guy.
So hypothetically speaking, even if he were to cross over to the PBC side of things, who would he fight once he gets there? He already fought Sean Porter, who has since retired. Danny Gersha, he hasn't fought all of this year, and he's talking about going up to 154 pounds, so he's not available either. Neither is Keith Thurman, who's been missing in action for the last 2 years.
I don't get the sense Errol's going to fight him next.
We've been all through that. The story is that wheels were in motion to try to do a Spence versus Ugas fight early next year, but the WBA's four-man tournament
got in the way of that.
Given everything we've seen from Errol Spence Jr., his demeanor towards this fight the last 3 going on 4 years, do you get the sense that he'd fight Terrence Crawford next in his very next fight, coming off a year layoff and an eye injury? I'm going to give it to you straight because it's the only way I know how to give it to you. It's conceivable that Terrence Crawford may very well end up over there on the PBC side of things, but I've no idea who he'd fight once he got there, because these PBC All-Stars he mentioned, these PBC All-Stars he's talking about,
they're all in haphazard condition.
and they've all been inactive for at least 12 months, at least a year. That's right. Errol Spence Jr. hasn't fought all this year, and neither has Danny Garcia. Keith Thurman, he's been out of action longer than them.
You say the guy should go to the PBC, but to fight who?
This is what I mean when I say there's a lot of instability. There's a lot of instability to go around. There's instability in the career of Teofimo Lopez moving forward, instability in the career of Josh Taylor, and instability in the career of Terrence Crawford. I don't know what's next for the 3 of these guys. Tell you, it's a real pickle. Terrence Crawford can go as far as going to the PBC, looking for opponents, looking for big fights, but there's no guarantees that he'll get them.
And given the state of those guys, are those still even big fights?
Last I checked, Errol Spence Jr.'s numbers were down from the time that he fought Mikey Gersha. He didn't do the numbers with Danny that he did with Mikey, and that was the last time he was out there. Finally, in heavyweight news, Bob Arum has declared that Tyson Fury wants at least 3 fights in 2022, starting in February or March. He added, I think Dillian White should be the next fight for Tyson Fury.
Wouldn't mind that at all.
Finally seeing those two old buddies settle the score, that really would be something, though in truth, If this is intended to muster up excitement, if this is intended to be exciting news, I'm not excited. Because when it comes to Tyson Fury, there's a lot of instability there too. Instability, which we just talked about. I don't know that Tyson Fury's going to follow through on his word to fight Dillian Whyte. I mean, he did follow through on his word when it came to Wilder. Maybe he'll do the same when it comes to Dillian Whyte, though I just don't see it. The idea of Tyson Fury fighting 3 times in the year of 2022, yeah, maybe against guys like Agit Kabayel, who wouldn't be a bad opponent choice, though he's not the most exciting one either. The ideal pecking order for that kind of schedule would be Dillian Whyte in February or March, then maybe an Agit Kabayel kind of guy in between, and then cap off the year with the winner of Joshua versus Usyk 2, whoever it might be, whether it's Anthony Joshua or Alexander Usyk.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound good. Too good to be true. Because the WBC hasn't officially ordered that fight, what we're looking at is a situation to where if Fury's going to fight this guy, he might fight him as a voluntary. And Dillian Whyte's entitlement to a certain percentage of the pot as a mandatory, it's not in play. Not if they're taking him on as a voluntary. And what is Old Fish Eyes prepared to offer Dillian Whyte for that fight anyway? I mean, it sounds good. It all sounds good. Sounds great. Tyson Fury getting out there 3 times in the year of 2022, but I'd have to see it to believe it.
Let alone if it includes a Dillian Whyte fight.
The whole thing gets boring after a while. Hearing about things that
Might happen.
Tyson Fury might do in the very near future, when what he should be doing is going straight into negotiations with Dillian Whyte, but that's not what's going on. That's not what's happening. That's not what's being reported. We have no confirmation that that's going to be Tyson Fury's next fight. All we have are preliminary reports of things that he might do.
And with this guy, you never really know.
A good number of Tyson Fury's fans are happy to see Dillian Whyte deprived of that world title shot, that world title opportunity that he's been after for so long. I don't even understand these people. I don't know what kind of boxing fan wouldn't want to see these two guys fight, given how much
history they got.
how much bad blood there is between them. Who wouldn't want to see them swap punches?
Tyson Fury's fans don't seem too excited about it.
I really can't be bothered to try and figure out what kind of boxing fans these people are.